think education, the landscape has changed tremendously in the last 2 years. Universities are more focused on what has to be done. India, of course, is the new superpower everybody is looking at. I think now the conversations are more around, if not India, then where?
Somebody who does not know Acumen, how will you define the work that you do and how is it different from others?
A lot of companies talk about what has to be done, what is good for the universities. We proudly stand tall and we say, let us show how this is done.
Hello, welcome back to Intersect Masters Union podcast series. This is episode 4 that we are recording, and today have with me one of the most celebrated person working in the higher education space in India. I think not only in India, now across the world he's known. His name is Sagar Bahadur. He's the executive director of Acumen. I've known Sagar personally for last many years, and I've been in awe of the work and the growth that he has shown in terms of both professional and personal growth, but also with the kind of work that he has done with organizations such as Amity, University of Queensland, and now with Acumen. So this is going to be a very exciting and insightful conversation on a person who is leading the charge for the internationalization, a market entry for a lot of global institutions in India and the wider region. Sagar, welcome to Masters Union.
Thank
We
you.
are so honored to have you here with us. As someone who has known you for last many years and seen you personally, I think we are both contemporaries in terms of starting our careers at about the same time, and not choosing the traditional path. I mean, I'm myself an engineer and now working in education for last 15 years. I would love to understand your own personal journey. What brought you to education, your early professional journey, and probably a bit about your academic background. If you can just start there.
So thank you. Firstly, a pleasure to be hosted here. I've been seeing your work as well. Started in a very traditional kind of a way. I've studied my schooling years in Delhi, and was quite interesting because I come from a family where my mother has been an educator from the start till she retired, same school. So had a great
Wonderful.
journey, in a way of how you get educated within the same school. I did science. That is where I thought, the journey would lead, but then soon shifted my focus to business and management. Went to Singapore to pursue my higher education, again in the field of management. I came back and started something of my own, and that I think was most driven by my father. I was very inspired by his work, and I thought there's something that I want to do with him as well. 2 years in that line, I got an opportunity in Singapore, where that was the first stint, and I think it was by accident that education sector opened the door, and I got an opportunity for an institution looking for business development, market entry into India. I told my dad, why not? Let's give it a shot. There'll be an international organization to work with. I'll do it for 2 or 3 years and then come back. And I think that coming back never happened then. That led to multiple other kind of, growth opportunities, very exciting sector. And I also felt education was never, what I would have thought at some point. I used to see how my mother used to, contribute when it comes to education, but I was very inclined to business, business growth. But I think this gave a perfect kind of a landing, platform where both education and business gives a lot of opportunities now. And that's how, it just happened by accident, but very happy about it.
Wonderful, fascinating story. So your dad is a businessman, or?
No, he used to lead a business, but he used to lead a particular vertical.
Okay.
And I think seeing him, what he did, he traveled the world, and
Okay.
he was in the natural stone export business.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to go do something. I want to travel the world and do
Okay.
something in that same field.
Wonderful.
So that was the journey for me.
And you also studied in Singapore?
I did. So I did my master's there in international business.
Wonderful.
And again, the intent was that there'll be at some point of time, import, export, and kind of international transactions. But I never knew the same kind of fundamentals will be used back when you see
Wow.
the education sector.
Oh, how the dots connect. So
Yes.
this was which year you were studying in Singapore?
I was studying in 2007.
2007.
I came back in 2008.
Wonderful.
And yeah, that's been the journey.
And then you
then.
started your own. You said you
I started my
your
own,
And
yeah.
what was that idea
So
about?
we started something of how India can be serviced with the export quality as well. So how do we find segments in India who can still look at that kind of export quality, stones and natural, kind of granites and all.
Okay, so that was not to do anything with education.
Nothing. And just 1.5 year, 2 years down the line,
So you were in
uh,
stones.
I was completely in a different construction kind of field.
Different, altogether different field. And
Yes,
then you
yes.
said that this opportunity came along.
This,
And
yeah,
how did
yeah.
this opportunity come along for you?
So this was my alma mater,
Okay,
MDI Singapore,
okay,
asking that
that's a fantastic
India looks
institution.
very, exciting, and you've been a student, you know us, you know the market. Is there anything we can do together? And I, at that point, was working on construction sites and so
Yeah.
and so, and I was like, wow, it'll be an opportunity to work with international peers,
From
colleagues.
construction to education, what a
Yes,
fascinating story.
yes, yes, yes.
And then you never went back.
I never went back. My
Yeah, this is
dad,
amazing.
at some point, would have been earlier disappointed. I
Yeah.
hope he's very proud of what he says now.
Yes, we are all proud of you.
No, thank you.
So, I mean, that's interesting, and there are similarities here because
Yeah.
I'll just, add my own one personal journey as well. Because I was a software engineer working with Satyam Computers. And then I went and did MBA with IMT Ghaziabad, Dubai
Wonderful.
campus. And when I came back, I used to work for an organization called HT Media in corporate sales, and I had no idea that I will work in education. And my alma mater also called me, and they said we are looking for somebody to lead our India office.
Yeah.
And why don't you come to IMT Ghaziabad and set up this admissions and outreach
Yeah.
office? And I never went back. So this is such a fascinating, what a fascinating story we both have, and similar.
Very
So
similar. Yeah.
wonderful. So I think this will be around, for me. It was about 2010 when I started working
Yeah.
in education. You started working in
Yeah,
education
so
around the
end
same
of
time.
nine, end of nine,
Of
10.
9, 10.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you started working with them. I know for a fact, having known you personally, I think one of the very interesting and fascinating times, and very times that you still cherish, is your work with Amity.
Oh, yes.
And I think you spent good 8+ years in Amity, worked
Yeah.
with all the top bosses there. What was that journey like? Why don't you share something about that?
So Amity happened just 2 years after, I started my education journey. They had aspirations to expand internationally. Singapore was their market.
Okay.
And that's where, our connection happened.
Okay.
I think foundationally, one of the best, kind of experience. Early on in the career, the complexities and, how scalability looks in international education, were just built in with that experience early on. So there were like large scale multi-geography projects. You're thinking about 10 years, 20 years down the line with a group like Amity. And I think the best part was we were working right at the top, so you work with the leaders who really have that vision of what 20 years or 30 years would look like. I remember the first time we were discussing with the chancellor where, I used to report to. We were discussing that we'll have a campus in the US.
Wow.
And this is 2011, I think.
Okay.
And I was thinking to myself, is that really, a possibility? But then by 2018, when I was moving out, we had 2 campuses in the US. We had multiple 15 plus campuses across.
So you were heading or working in international?
Yes, yes. So
business development?
I headed the international business, so for a vertical which was responsible to take Amity outside of India.
Okay, set up campuses
So
outside of
set up
India.
campuses, greenfield acquisitions, set up schools.
Wow, that is really
So very
interesting.
exciting in a way of convincing, meeting foreign governments, meeting representatives, and trying to convince them that
Wow.
an Indian brand wants to come and can impart quality education. And to showcase what we have done across the globe in India. Then multiple successes every year, picking different geographies and setting campuses.
So you were
very exciting.
You were traveling the world like your dad. I mean,
I was. Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah,
I
that's
think. Yeah,
see how the universe conspires
I
if
know.
you have the right intent to
I
give
know,
you those
yeah.
opportunities. I'm so happy. So tell us a little bit more about. You said Amity in US, and I have traveled also myself to about 40 odd countries. I've seen Amity campuses in Mauritius, Amity in Dubai, Amity. Especially in US, I was there. I've seen their tremendous growth. I think they have multiple campuses now outside of India. And so what was, and this is 2011, 2012. I mean, those are the timelines that you're talking about. You are a young guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you are, you still are learning a lot of things, as we
Yes.
all were during those times. What was that experience like working with people like Dr. Chauhan and the leadership at Amity? How did they groom you?
I think we had a terrific time, very small team. I think all handpicked with different kind of skills, different kind of passions. We were all young, very, very hungry at that point. And we had a perfect blend of experience and that kind of youth, coming together with a kind of leadership which really had that kind of vision. We started coming out of our comfort zones in certain ways, and I think what we saw, how we got inspired, was just straight out, full day of work, which was relentlessly every day,
Yeah.
just repeating that routine.
Yeah, I think
And
you were telling me
yeah,
Dr. Asim Chauhan's
yeah.
schedule. I mean,
Yeah. So we used to start, quite early, just trying to see what all is happening across the globe. Where is the best opportunity for us to grow, and what's already there, what's the firefight, and what's happening. And I think it all just happened from morning till late in the night, till early mornings in certain, occasions. But all of us took a lot of pride in, us managing that kind of structures, those fundamentals, the processes, and very inspiring to see the leadership sitting with us day in, day out, setting that tone, setting the example. We were all having meals together, skipping meals together, traveling the world. So, and I think I tell a lot of people now that journey of 8 years, uh,
wow.
doing things which were unimaginable, at times, nothing seems tough now. You say this has to be done, and the mind starts processing the problem in a way that you have 24 hours to solve each day. How do you put the best foot forward? So I think it's just a great foundation.
Amazing to hear this story. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. And NEP, now we are seeing a lot of
Yeah.
internationalization efforts post NEP 2020.
Yes.
And imagine 20 years back, Amity Group was thinking of having
Oh yeah.
campuses in
I
US
know.
and
Yeah.
UK and all these places.
Yeah.
And they have actually delivered it. And
Yes.
you being there,
Oh yeah.
actually, I'm sure, has left a lasting impact on the way you approach
Oh
your
yeah.
work and life. So amazing, amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
No, most
sharing that
welcome.
part of your professional journey. And now, Amity, you worked there for 8 years, and
Yes.
you had really good experience. And then
Mm.
I distinctly remember you doing some fantastic work for a university called University of Queensland in
Yes.
Australia.
Yes. Yes.
And University of Queensland in Australia, I'm a great fan of your work, by the way,
Oh,
that you did there.
thank you.
You really were
Oh,
doing
thank
some
you.
exceptional work
Yeah.
in connecting the university to the
Mm.
the higher education, the school network
Mhm.
here in India. So tell us, how did that happen from Amity to University of Queensland, and what was your role like there? What was
Yeah.
the experience?
Amity, 8 years, I think each month was something very new, so which kept me always thinking, okay, there's something new. And as a person, I think I'm very restless of how do you keep moving forward. And I still feel Amity 8 years were only because of the fact that we had so many countries, so many projects, and diversity that kept coming in. And one of the conversations that I was having in the sector, somebody approached me and said, University of Queensland wants to come to India and do some groundbreaking stuff. And, the leadership is very strategically inclined of, how a university of that stature, being a top 50, should be operating in India. So I had a couple of discussions and I think led to my understanding that I've understood how to take quality education out of India to abroad. And I think it'll be a great experience to learn the reverse of how do you bring a world-class university and make it very locally relevant in India. Then when I started meeting the teams, I think I felt it'll be great to work with, a different set of people, a very different pedigree, very different kind of, processes. UQ was a 111-year-old institution at that
Yeah,
point. So you're
it's
talking about legacies,
legacy.
coming in. And even with that legacy, how do you become relevant? So I think that I saw it as a great challenge personally first to learn a different skill of how do you get quality, to India. And a different challenge of how do you benchmark your own standards with the likes of, a great team that I could see at UQ.
So they were coming into the country for the first time.
No, I think they were there for some time, but was very recruitment focused.
Okay,
And for me, recruitment was just a subset when
subset.
I was setting the vision with them
Okay,
that there's so much a university of that stature should do in India.
yeah.
And when we charted what that would look like, it looked like an immense, comprehensive way a university should come, contribute to India, but then as a byproduct, there'll be other kind of mobilities that'll come in. So I think that made perfect sense. There was a time Australia, I think, was keenly looking at India with a very strategic lens as well.
Yeah,
So that gave us a complete, kind of a headwind there. Of
wonderful.
I had at times the challenge because I had not done Australia before. So as soon as the job came, I think there were general perceptions of how will that happen? You don't know Australia. And for me, it was like, great. I mean, that's a good challenge to get into. The whole team that we built consciously had nobody in the team who had done Australia before. So I picked up people from the US sector, the UK
Wow.
sector. We picked up from the corporate, from the Indian sector. We picked up alumni from Australia. We were like, let's come with no baggage. Let's just do the way, we want to set this up against the perceptions of this is not how a group of eight works. And I was like, let's set the way how a group of eight should work then. And that was quite exciting, the way those 3 years went. It was
This is
very
a
enriching.
trendsetter, Sagar.
Thank you.
I agree. I mean, I remember when at some point of time, I also, in my career, I worked with Ashoka and Jindal, and between Ashoka and Jindal, I did interview with a couple of international universities, Canadian and US, and everywhere I went, there was this unsaid bias that you do not know. Either you have not studied in
Yeah.
US or Canada, or how would you understand the education system? And I think you're absolutely correct. For you also, that would have been a bias in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of why, because you don't know University of Queensland, you have not
Yeah.
studied in Australia. I mean, how will? But you actually did some fantastic work. So I mean,
Thank
a
you.
lot of the youngsters ask me now. I mean, who are listening to this podcast, we have not studied in international locations, and can we work with an international institution? I think Sagar Bahadur is a perfect example
Thank you.
of not only you can work, but you can thrive, and the work that you have done is amazing. And sitting as someone who was heading admissions and outreach at OP Jindal, we used to take pride in saying that Sagar is doing some fantastic work
thank
in
you.
University of Queensland. Uh, so, I mean, University of Queensland was a good, I think, 3 years you
3 years,
spent
yeah.
in the
3
University
years
of
there.
Queensland and
Yes.
left your impact there.
Yep.
And I think then you went on to start your something of your own, GradStar.
Yes, yes. So I
Tell
think
us a bit about the journey at GradStar and why did that happen?
so. UQ was a great success for us, and I think the success goes to again the same concepts of having the right mentors, having the right team, and I think that combination really sets the whole pace. At UQ, we were very convinced the work that we could deliver, if we can deliver in an institution which has legacy and still is has a lot of structures. If we could have done this kind of work and impact in that institution, both I and my director international at that time, Alison, both of us felt that we can actually take this out to the market. We can actually replicate some of these concepts, models to other universities who are also ambitious as looking at India, South Asia, with a different lens. Universities whose their recruitment pyramids generally would be very skewed to agents and directs. That's the only pyramids they
Yeah,
have.
that is the way
And
they operate.
we came with the concept that the recruitment pyramid should have articulation, should have schools, should of course have agents, but then that pyramid looks very different, looks very large organically. And we came with a concept that we're not building pipelines, we are building bridges. The students will follow the positioning will happen.
Absolutely.
So that
Absolutely
we
correct.
just felt that'll be a great change to this, scenario. We come absolutely from a university background, so we don't understand how the other setup works. So we thought we'll make a mark. We had a good 2 years there as well. We had got 50 plus partnerships in our first year, which I believe was again
Wow.
a testament of
First year.
the trust and was a good phase of just understanding how friendships also work in our sector. A lot of people were there to help support, the cause, the company. We had a great run, and I think that experience just helped me hone the leadership skills to, set up new things, how bootstrapping is done. So a lot of different things, different skills. But ultimately, what we learned in Amity of how do you build, I think those fundamentals of building ideas, building teams, building companies, building products, it's just a fundamental that keeps getting better and
Yeah.
better, I feel.
So GradStar was your own company, or is
No,
it like how were
so
you? Is it like
GradStar was owned by a company and is still owned by a company in
okay,
Singapore.
okay,
Allison and I came and we started building that
okay.
in a way that gave us that comfort of still being part of the ownership, but still was a very soft landing on this experiment of how do you start a company.
Okay,
So it was very exciting. Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. And then we come to the place that you are now heading. I
Yes.
mean, Acumen,
Yes.
erstwhile Sannam S4. I
Yes.
mean, huge fan of Andrew Mutton.
Yeah.
And he's doing some fantastic work. He was at one of our I hosted him for one of our Zoom
Mm-hmm.
conversations 2 years
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
in the Outreach Collective. And what a fascinating story. And we were just
Yeah.
discussing,
Yes.
amazing work, and to
Yeah.
get to work with a person like him, and not only work, the lead, the
Mm.
expansion,
Yeah.
and you are at the forefront of it. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just telling me about your visit to Japan, and now you are again on the road. I mean, most of the times when I call you, you are somewhere in Southeast Asia, and we keep seeing you on LinkedIn, and Sagar is doing this. It's some fantastic work, some fantastic
Yeah.
energy happening, and you leading it. So tell me, how did Acumen happen, and what are you up to in Acumen?
So Acumen happened during the UQ days, and not many people know that University of Queensland was doing the market entry through Acumen.
Okay, I didn't know
So
that. I also
so
didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay,
so I think I had the experience of Acumen for 3 years earlier.
okay.
That's where I got to know Adrian and the team and how this whole organization works. But of course, from a very different lens. So I was on the other side of the business, trying to see how can a university work with Acumen and how do we succeed to our agendas. But again, big fan of what Adrian built, how he brings the energy into the business. The DNA of the company is so unique. And when GradStar was moving ahead, I think the model of how we were servicing universities, I think there was a clear alignment of what we want to do at GradStar to what Acumen wanted to build as well, and just keep building on that.
Mm.
So Adrian and I started discussing that the scale of Acumen, given that we had 100 plus universities, these kind of models can just be scaled up at a much faster rate. The impact can
Yeah.
be,
Okay. The same models that you were trying
yeah,
at
yeah.
GradStar and
So we said, how do we help universities go beyond the mindset of traditional recruitment? What can success look like for them? So how do we explain to universities that, while one particular model gives them what they need now, but as soon as something changes in geopolitics, macro environment, the other channels would be very useful. And I think in those conversations, the fitment came. I think Adrian would have seen that I know the business from the other side as well. So it's very easily relatable of what a university would expect. And 2 years now in this new role, I think it's been a perfect kind of a platform to bring old experiences of how things were to set new benchmarks. And I think education, the landscape has changed tremendously in the last 2 years. Forget
it
about
has.
5.
Yeah.
The opportunities have grown. I think universities are more focused on what has to be done. India, of course, is the new superpower everybody is looking at.
Yeah.
So our definition of work also has changed. There's a lot of consulting that we do now. There's a lot of admission processing we do for universities. There's a lot of beyond recruitment work we do, and our definition of who's coming to us also changed drastically. We have governments, we have government agencies, we have schools, K-12, internationally coming and saying, this looks great. How can we be part of this journey? What can success look like for us? And I think the major change was Acumen from India became much global. So we're talking about Southeast Asia, we're talking about Africa, Middle East, South Asia, China, Japan, Latin America,
Wow.
Europe. And I think this model is, can be replicated across geographies. And that's what we're enjoying at this point.
Super. So become a global company. You are now global. I mean, that is for sure. Last year we met at NAFSA, and
Yes.
I lost to you in bowling. I mean, that I still remember that. So we have to catch up on that
This
game.
NAFSA.
But NAFSA was great, and I
Yes.
saw
Yes.
the wide variety of work that you are doing across the world, not
Hmm.
only in India. I mean, I used to think that Adrian only operates in
Hmm.
Sannam S4 or Acumen
Yeah.
now only operates in India, but I think you are operating in most of
Yes.
the world geographies. And I think the work that I saw in US, and you were there on the road for 1 month traveling, and you spoke about it. And today also we spoke that the work that you're doing. So the vision at Acumen is also growing, and there are a
Yes.
lot of, as you said, not
Yeah.
only in India, globally. But let's come to India. I mean, last couple of years, and you rightly said not only 5 years, last 2 years, India
Yeah.
has now become the big hot cake
Yeah.
that everybody
Yeah.
wants to enter.
Yeah.
And we had earlier guest here. I mean, Namita and I spoke. Namita Mehta, who heads the
Yes.
Red Pen,
Yeah.
she was speaking how boarding schools are now looking at
Yeah.
India, and
Yeah.
all the top UK boarding
Yeah.
schools and Swiss boarding schools and universities we all know are looking at. We are already seeing
Yeah.
universities coming, UK, US, Canadian, very
Yeah.
deeply
Yeah.
interested in. I mean, yesterday I was reading a news that said the Maharashtra government, the
Yes.
Mumbai, there is a special economic zone,
Yes.
education zone being created where you have
Yes.
five
Yes.
top universities, three
Yeah.
from US and a couple of them from UK and Canada, looking
Yeah.
to set up campuses. So everything is happening.
Everything
So
is happening.
your phone is ringing off the hook, I'm sure. So how are you seeing this growth? And I also, one just point out, I think last week you were, or last week you were doing something with the Niti Aayog.
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell me, what is happening here?
So I'll talk about the Niti Aayog first, and then
Yeah.
we'll set. So last year, relentlessly, we were approaching the government of India through various agencies, telling them that while we have the NEP in place, the new education policy, there are still some bottlenecks. And of course, any new thing will have those bottlenecks once you start that journey. But given the scale and the kind of universities we have and their intentions and ambitions, we could pick a lot of stuff and we started feeding it back to different, various government agencies that, this particular process has an issue. How do you get an FCRA for a non-profit
Yes.
education institution coming? Multiple things where we started writing white papers. It was Niti Aayog where Dr. Shashank Shah, with his great vision of how education has to be revamped and how India has to become more international and inviting, gave us the mandate that we should actually do a study of what an NEP 2.0 should look like. So fine, we have had
Wonderful.
5 years of NEP. And then we made this consortium of IIT Madras, Acumen, and Association of Indian Universities, a study given by Niti Aayog to go to all stakeholders, respective stakeholders between the three of us, and bring experiences of what's great, what's working, and what can be done better to make it work better. So we started this study last year, and we have had multiple workshops where we got all the stakeholders together in person, and we used to ask, what do you expect more? So one part of the study is what's working. The second part was what can be done better, and smallest of the things of how living quarters of international students can be better. What kind of accessibilities to legal structures, to taxation,
Wow.
how every state can become a
So much
small.
required, yeah.
And then the second part of the study was very interesting, where we started comparing how can we take the best practices from certain developed or developing countries. So how can we take something from Malaysia? Has Sri Lanka done something which we can learn from? Has Middle East done something which we can learn? So I think that's a comprehensive study. Last week, we all gathered at IIT Madras.
IIT Madras.
A lot of delegates from API were there,
Yeah.
senior government leadership, state
That,
governments.
that looked fantastic.
And all of us were discussing. It was a safe environment where we were all bringing our own experiences of what we are seeing, where we can be in the next 5 years. This is the report. Then the recommendations will be submitted to the PMO and various
Amazing.
other
Oh
departments.
wow, amazing,
So
amazing work.
that's where it is. For Acumen, we have evolved significantly in a way where earlier the conversations 2 years back were around how do you come to India? You should come to India. I think now the conversations are more around if not India, then where
Yeah,
is the first one.
absolutely.
But also, it's about how early can we come? What's the best route to come? How do we make our impact? So we see a lot of excitement in that sector,
Yeah,
where every university has a different ambition, but India is on the forefront at the top of the
at
list.
top of the list.
Yes.
So happy to hear that. So I mean, people are looking at India, and Acumen is there helping them, and you're now working with government also. Niti Aayog you mentioned. Uh, so I think things are looking bright, you will
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
for Indian higher education,
Oh,
or
100%. I think multiple opportunities for Indian sector to grow as well, and multiple, I think, opportunities for international sector to grow and assimilate and partner.
wonderful.
But I think bright days ahead.
Super, so exciting. So,
Yes.
I quickly want to. We are sitting in Masters Union in
Yes.
Gurgaon, and I'm sure you would have heard about Masters
Yes.
Union and TETR. You are here today with us.
Yeah.
I have been working with the founders here for last couple of years. I'm
Yeah.
sure you would have seen the work that we
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
doing. What is your take on the
Yeah.
approach that Masters Union and then TETR also? I mean,
So I had the privilege of knowing Masters Union through one of my friends in the foundation batch.
okay.
So one of my
Oh,
friends
wonderful.
joined.
Foundation batch.
Yeah, he was in the first batch, and at that point, I think we were all getting to know what Masters Union is.
Yeah.
Coming from education, I had those questions of how does this work? And I feel now sitting here, it's just such a refreshing, bold,
Yeah.
and I think a very new experiment for education. How industry has been brought to campus in a very meaningful way,
Yeah.
which I think has been the talk since many years. But here, what I've seen, what I've heard, is industry really integrates very well in a very meaningful way. I think that's been very good. Personally, I really relish anyone and really respect anyone who can really rethink education from ground up, and this is a clear example of how that is. And Tether, of course, we work with Tether in Southeast Asia,
Wonderful.
so we had the privilege of really understanding the core of the product, meeting some of the students, working with the team, and again, a fascinating kind of a case study for us, which we very often use to some of our foreign partners, saying that, see, this is the kind of innovation we are talking about. So it's
Coming out
been,
of India.
yeah, coming out of India. Yeah,
Sagar, I told you, you were not here for Intersect that we hosted in
yes,
February, where we
yes,
had delegates from 15 countries, and I had a couple of delegates over from US and Singapore, and
yeah,
they were all fascinated when they met
yeah,
my Masters Union student and TETR students, and they were
yeah.
like, okay, I think education
Hmm.
was due for a higher
Yeah,
education, especially
yeah,
was due for a change, and this
mm,
industry academia gap
yes,
had to be bridged. It was not happening in the West.
yeah,
We are
yeah,
so happy that it is happening in India.
yes,
And you spoke about TETR. TETR now attracts almost 70 to 80% of students are international students,
mm.
and they are not only coming from developing countries.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, I have
yeah,
students from UK, Germany, Latin America, many parts of Europe, US,
right,
Singapore, and
yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah,
places. I mean, all, and when I meet these students,
mm.
and I'm fascinated that
True,
uh, education was due for a change, higher
yes,
education,
certainly,
and TETR and Masters Union are
mm.
leading that, and I'm happy that you're also resonating with it, and
Yeah,
you had a friend in the founding batch at Masters Union. I
yes,
didn't know that, so
yeah,
amazing. So thank you for sharing your feedback on
true,
us. Uh, you know, before I end, our conversation, Sagar, I know you are somebody that a lot of people in our community look up to. I mean,
oh, thank
they're like, okay, if I have to plan my 15 years or 20 years in education, probably I would love to be in a position where Sagar is in terms
mm.
of, uh, let's be honest about it. You are somebody that has seen the world. You work with
Mm.
some of the best people
Mm.
and across your career, and we were just discussing having the right mentors
Yeah,
at the right time is so
yeah,
important.
yeah,
But what will your advice be? When we started out,
mm.
education was never meant to be a career path. I mean, I will
Yeah,
be very honest.
mm.
In the initial 4 or 5 years, I always used to think, okay, is there a career in education?
Yeah, true, true,
And I think that question is now solved. I mean, there
mm.
is definitely a career
100%, yeah,
in education, and it's not only an academic.
yeah,
We always used to think we have to do a
yeah,
PhD if we
yeah,
want to survive in education
100%,
and become a
100%,
doctor and probably have an administrative role. Now the world is wide open.
oh,
I mean, you
100%,
can be doing business development, you can
yeah,
be
yeah,
doing
strategy to
operations,
accounts, yeah,
strategy,
yeah, yeah,
marketing, and whatever. I mean,
yeah,
in boarding schools, international schools,
true,
universities,
true,
organizations such as yours, and in places such as Masters Union,
true, true,
and so the world is opening up. What will your advice be? Maybe
mm.
top of your head, if some youngster is looking, and uh, and is looking for some uh, understanding of, if I have to make a career
Mm.
in education, let's say in any
Yeah,
space,
yeah.
what are those 2 3 things that a person should have?
I think just for education, firstly, it's
Yeah,
a sector which keeps you grounded, but
yeah,
also very inspired. Like there's so much happening. So I just feel it's a perfect sector where I see myself growing, and contributing for many years. I think I uh, also am trying to bust this myth that education may not be the sector for many. But I think there are a lot of opportunities. That's one parallel conversation that I keep when people ask what education has to offer. I think that's a great sector to be in. You're always inspired, humble, because you meet so many different characters and personalities. I think overall, I just felt what worked for me was the right set of mentors.
mentors.
I think once you have those people trying to guide you, who can inspire you, really works out very well. How do you build your own team? At some point, I think you can't do everything alone. So you
Yeah.
have to start trusting and taking those people up. I think that's been a key where I've been very fortunate to work with the right set of people as well, very aligned. One other thing which again worked very well was I think how you club your personal aspirations with the business aspirations, and if they can be tuned at the same frequency, then you're seeing your own growth, you're seeing the company growing with you, and I think that journey then is rewarding for that ecosystem that you're trying to build. That really worked very well. And lastly, I think there's no substitute to hard work.
Hard work.
I think work-life integration is something I really believe in, where I think life, everyone has 24 hours. How do you make the best for your family, for your health, for your work? I mean, it's totally up to you. Gone are the days where somebody's sitting on your head and trying to dictate, your biometrics and other kind of things. I think it's about intentionally working the best given your ambitions. And for me, I think I try to squeeze any time that I can have at home for work. But similarly, if I can integrate some part of my family time, when I'm traveling for work, I think it's something that's worked very well, where there's no bifurcation of balance. It's just work-life integration, and so far I've been sane with it. Yeah.
You're doing fantastic. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much,
you.
Hare Krishna. God bless you. I think one of the things that I want to just touch upon, I mean, fantastic advice, Sagar. I think mentorship is a thing that now at my point of in my age now, probably around my midlife, people also look for mentorship from me. I mean, a lot of youngsters, and I work. I'm also a faculty member at OP
Yes.
Jindal. I teach. A lot of youngsters who are just starting out and studying in undergraduate or postgraduate, they'll come up to me, and even the youngsters who are starting their careers in education, they'll come to me, can I get a reference from you, or can you introduce me to somebody like Sagar, and probably introduce my CV or resume. So what I feel is mentorship is good. Yes, you approach a mentor, and but the second aspect of when you select a mentor is also to follow what he or she
Oh, yeah.
advises.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, I want to address this here. A lot of the time when I advise people, uh, they don't follow, and they're like, and after 1 month they'll come back to me and like, nothing is happening. I said, did you follow what I had to say last time around? No, I couldn't. There were XYZ excuses.
Yeah.
That will never work. That is not mentorship.
Yeah.
That is you are looking at some to take out something from someone.
Yeah.
That is never going to help your cause. And I think I think that is there in our scriptures as well. So whatever your guru tells you, you have to follow it to the T. And I was giving you an example of Professor Raj.
Yes.
How last evening he called me, and I'm teaching one course at Jindal, and this is the first time ever I'm teaching.
Yeah.
And I was like, he will pat my back and say, okay, you have done a good job. For last 3 months you have been teaching something.
Yeah.
But he was very, focused on me, and he said, you have taught one course, next semester teach two, and then complete your PhD work along with it. So those are the kind of mentors that drive you. And probably 5 years down the line, I will remember this conversation and say thank you to him that you were. And I also want to go back to, we have hosted Shiv Kheda ji at Intersect, and I was meeting Shiv Kheda last week. I was telling you in his office. He had the same things to say, and he said sometimes you have to be hard on people to be kind to them.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Very profound.
Yeah. You have to be hard.
Yeah.
You will find in that moment, you'll find that person to be very difficult to deal with. You will not like that person. But then probably when you see the impact that advice had on you, if you follow it, you will be thankful for all your life. And that is what I have
100%.
realized with my mentors. Whoever has been tough on me, has given me tough love, is the one that I remember from my school days to today. So that is my advice to people. You want to add something? And
I just want to add, I think as a mentor, I've been very fortunate where my mentors have really lived by their advice also.
Yeah.
So if they're saying this is how things have to be done, I've seen how they've been doing it. And right from Amity to Acumen, I see that. So if I ever mentally complain about a 15-hour workday, I would still see Adrian flying across the globe,
Super.
doing an 18-hour, still trying to read books, still trying to do some course, and I'll be questioning myself. This is what the benchmark is, and the same was Amity. I think, and again, if somebody that I work very closely with, I'll try to follow the same principle that can I do what I'm trying to tell them, and set that kind of example for them.
Wonderful.
So I think that works very well.
Absolutely, and I want to finish this thought off. You're absolutely correct. Being a mentor is also a thing for the responsibility for the person you're looking up to, because he has to, then be that role model for you.
True.
And just to speak from my reading of the Gita, in
Mm.
which Krishna says that, even if I don't do anything, I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But Arjun, if I don't do anything, the entire world will stop, because they are
Yeah.
looking for somebody to look up to. And if I
Yeah.
am not the role model,
Yeah.
then you won't follow me, and the civilization won't prosper. So this is again from our
Yeah.
Gita. And
Yeah.
when I read that shloka, I was like, okay, wow. I mean, this is still relevant
Yeah.
today.
True.
And you're right, reading books. I mean, you spoke about
Yeah.
Adrian and
Yeah.
how important it is to
Yes.
read. I mean,
Yes.
it's not only that you all get all your gun from YouTube videos and reels. I mean, it's still important to
Oh, yeah.
read
Yeah.
every day and update
Yes.
yourself. So, Sagar, another question that I have for you is, how is Acumen different? I know there is a lot of interest in India, and there are a lot of now other organizations also that are helping to understand what is happening in the country. So how will somebody who does not know Acumen, or even if he or she knows Acumen, how will you define the work that you do, and how is it different from others?
So, in a subjective way, I'll answer this. I think when we think about work in a subjective way, we are not just playing the game, we shape the field. And that's what I tell all our partners, that we are not somebody who will talk about transactions, but we'll talk about transformations. We'll basically, the discussions are not when we try to work with people, not around recruitment partnerships, but we embed ourselves with the universities in their growth strategy. We want to be part of that journey. We don't want to be in the space of being a payroll provider, providing some IT assistance or travel kind of, portals. We tell universities what success should look like and how do you reach success. The biggest strength, and I'm very proud of the core, the team that we have, very global, with that kind of local insights. And one thing that I see very often is a lot of companies would talk about what has to be done, what is good to, for the universities. We proudly stand tall and we say, let us show how this is done. So while we also talk about what's good for them, uh, we have the central core of expertise to say, come walk with us and we'll take you through those journeys. Now, let that be how are articulations done in a more innovative way. How do you, after signing MOUs, really make those MOUs work and, get the mobility?
Yeah, that's so
How,
important.
how is it important for all your research MOUs to actually get to impact? How do you build a campus? Now, it's very easy to say you should have a campus here, but then that journey of how do you set up a company, to what's the best structure, which is the best city, which agency to work with, I think that's where we differentiate ourselves to say we want to be those, practitioners. So not just a knowledge partner, but also after that, the execution piece comes in.
Wow.
So that's what I think differentiates
And
us.
I think, just to add here, and what I understood, I think education is a long-term thing. It's
Yes.
not a short-term
Yes.
strategy for any
Oh, 100%.
organization that is
100%.
operating in this field.
Yeah.
And I think you absolutely, that's what makes you stand out also, and that is why you have grown over a period of time. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
a 2-year-old company. I mean, Acumen is now at
Yeah.
least
17. Yeah.
two decades or
Yeah.
17
Almost 2 decades.
two
Yeah.
decades
17.
old
Yeah.
organization, which has its own credibility.
Yes.
And wherever I have traveled, I mean, somebody who works with Acumen has high things to say about Sannam
Thank
S4
you.
in the past, and now Acumen.
Yeah.
And that also talks about the vision that you
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
That is a long-term vision, and always looking at the doing the things in the right way. You are
Yes.
absolutely correct. You can set up a campus
Yeah.
any which ways, or
Yeah.
you can set up a campus for next 10, 20, 30 years, which
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
reap dividends for many years to come.
Certainly. Yeah.
So thank you so much,
Thank you.
Sagar, for doing that, and more power to you.
Thank you.
Sagar, before we go, I
Yeah.
mean, fun final question. I mean, we see you as, you take yourself very seriously. You're very professional, very good. And I've seen always, I mean, I've followed you. I've seen you for last 7, 8 years now. And I've always seen you, being very professional in the way you dress, the way you communicate. You look like somebody who's a perfectionist, always looking for perfection. But what is, Sagar as a person? How if I have to come to Sagar's home someday,
Yeah.
how will I find Sagar? Not in Acumen office. What do you like doing? What is your personality like?
I think in general, I'll be a mix of, curiosity, anxiousness. Like I'm very curious is a better word. So I'm always thinking ahead of what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next. And I just want to be there showing up for anything, any role that I have, in life, be it work. So I'm very conscious about how do we keep growing, but non-work as well. I'm a very proud husband of, an incredible woman who has built her own career,
Wow.
and I would always be trying to show the support or any kind of, things that she needs in her journey. I am a very hands-on dad for an 8-year-old daughter.
Wow. God bless her.
She keeps me grounded. She
God bless
brings the child in me.
God bless her.
And a son, so I stay with my parents, where I think just trying to live by the ethos that they've built in.
Wow.
So I think family is very crucial for me. I think all the courage to do what we do at work comes with the support and
Absolutely.
blessings,
Absolutely.
from them. Apart from work, I'll somehow, I think that work-life integration, I still try to find time to do photography. That's something that I
Wow.
really enjoy.
Okay.
And travel helps at times that you can, while traveling, just click a few. I like to read,
Wow.
so I'll always try to take out time to read. And I like to travel within, so I'll pick up my car, get my family or friends, and we'll just try to do something if we get the time. I think it's less, but even if we get 2 hours in the night, I'll just put them in the car, take a drive, listen to music, do these kind of things. So I don't want to lose that element. Like, I still want to keep my hobbies alive. Um, so that's what you'll see.
Wow, thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing that.
thank
That's
you.
such a lovely piece of information that I know
Thank
Sagar
you.
now better. How I see you at conferences and in my travels. Thank you so much, Sagar,
Thank
for
you.
taking time out. God
Thank you
bless
very
you. More
much.
power to you.
Thank you.
And keep growing,
Yeah.
keep taking the India story forward.
Yeah.
We are very proud of you,
Same to you guys as well.
and looking forward to collaborations with you, continued collaborations with you
Yes.
in years to come. And so that's a goodbye from all of us at Intersect by Masters Union. You will have another guest next week. But for today, we had Sagar, an amazing, inspiring figure for all of us. So much to learn from. Thank you.